Good evening everybody and welcome back to another DNQ video, this time talking about the AFF Suzuki Cup 2020. And I know what you're thinking, boys, you're a year late. But no, alas, the tournament was delayed. God knows why, right? Any reason? Any reason why? Can't think of one. It was delayed from 2020, from November 2020, but thankfully we'll be commencing Sunday, the 5th of December,
you had to work that out,
2021. I did have to work that out, yeah.
I love that you opted. Why didn't you just go for the date?
I know, I don't know. I don't know why.
The safety net of 5th of December, but you then tried to quick maths it and work. But I mean, you did it with the plot.
Yeah, you know what? I expected you to commend my bravery and let me get away with it, but alas, no, unfortunately not. But this tournament's quite a weird one, especially for us, you know, out in England, because it goes right across Christmas, across Boxing Day.
Weird.
Yeah, obviously that's not so much of a thing in Southeast Asia, which is totally fair enough. But from our point of view, it was quite surprising to see a tournament goes right over Christmas and finishes in the new year on the 1st of January. It's the 13th edition of this tournament, the 7th under the Suzuki branding, which is quite interesting because, you know, the Arab Cup, this is the first one that's the FIFA Arab Cup, but Suzuki branding for an international tournament, quite unique.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that Suzuki have decided to tap into the football market with sponsoring this. I guess it's not a random South Asian competition, is it? Because it's been going for 13 iterations, been going since 1996, so it's a long-standing competition. But yeah, Suzuki branding, fair play to them.
Yeah, love it.
We want to get into the footballing space. We want to get in front of football fans. Let's sponsor the Suzuki Cup.
I would be.
Who are we to judge, mate?
I would be interested if it's made any difference at all to Suzuki and what they've done. But who knows? Maybe it does.
Let's move on from.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Southeast Asia, and let's talk about the football.
If you are from Southeast Asia and you do drive a Suzuki, let us know and prove us wrong.
If you are from Southeast Asia and you enjoy football and were encouraged to purchase a Suzuki through their sponsorship of the Suzuki Cup, please drop a comment on this video and reach out to us.
So there's 10 teams that compete in this tournament. Now 9 automatically qualify. One is then through a preliminary game. This time it was due to be between Brunei and Timor-Leste. Brunei, unfortunate for them, they dropped out citing COVID as the reason. So obviously, you know, great for Timor, but Brunei chose to drop out. And I think that would have been a really close game, actually, looking at recent results. Not between the sides, but based on maybe a few years back, Brunei have been improving as a footballing nation. So yeah, Timor straight in. And an interesting fact is that Australia technically could play in this tournament.
I saw this, yeah.
They obviously they don't participate, and I think that that's fair enough. I think that, you know, Australia I commend a little bit as a national side because they don't compete in Oceania anymore because they were just winning every game in that. They moved to Asia, which is obviously a tougher qualification route, and it's not a walk in the park for them even now. But they don't compete in this tournament either, which gives space for these other teams, these less evolved footballing nations, we should say, to compete and to thrive, and it's a good opportunity for them. And an interesting fact as well of the 10 teams, we're going to get into each team in a bit of detail, but 2 of them, Thailand and Indonesia, I don't know if you've seen this right, not competing under the national flag.
I was going to ask you about this. Now, the reason that I saw this, I don't know, when I was doing some swatting up on the Suzuki Cup kind of pre-stream, just to get a little bit of a broad scale picture of the landscape of this tournament. I was on Wikipedia, and next to the name of the country was a question mark where the flag would be. But I had no idea that I hadn't put 2 and 2 together and hadn't clocked that they weren't competing under the fact. What's the reason for that then, Pat?
So they are actually currently non-compliant with World Anti-Doping. So that is all. That is all really? I know. They currently. I don't know if it's incredible. I don't know if it's a violation, but Indonesia and Thailand are not, similar to Russia at the Olympics, aren't technically competing as Thailand and Indonesia. as the countries. They're competing as the football associations because they currently don't comply with WADA, the World Anti-Doping Authority. So there you go.
I'm going to go out there and say right now, if any other footballing channel is giving you that sort of insight on YouTube, please do let us know. Incredible fact-finding from you there, mate. Pre-stream. Incredible stuff. Much. I had no idea. I've genuinely learned something from that.
Well, and that's what we try and bring to our viewers. You know, that's exactly what we try and do here on D&Q. But there's two groups of 5. The top 2 sides from each then go into double-legged semis and a double-legged final as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were going to keep that for this edition of the tournament. They are. Interesting. How do you feel about a double-legged? Actually, we'll do groups and then we'll talk.
Sure, we can come back to it. Absolutely. And talking of groups, you're going to get us underway talking about the sides that are competing in Group A of this tournament.
Yes. So those that are competing in Group A. So Tom's already alluded to this. We've got 10 teams competing, split into 2 groups of 5, believe it or not. Those that are competing in Group A are as follows: Thailand, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, who are hosting this tournament in Singapore. I think both group stages and semis and finals are hosted in Singapore. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. Normally they host this tournament in multiple locations. Group stages hosted one way, one place, and then semis, finals elsewhere. But everywhere is hosted in Singapore this time around. So Singapore are the hosts. And then the 5th and final team in Group A is Timor-Leste. Now, we'll do a quick overview and a quick blitz through each team, won't we, Thomas? So I'll do Group A, and you can tell all of the viewers about Group B and kind of who's in there, and just a couple of headline facts and figures about each team. So Group A, so we've got Thailand, who are currently 118 in the world rankings. They've been at every AFF championship and have won the tournament 5 times. The last 4 tournaments, the last 4 AFF Suzuki Cups, Thailand have been runner-up, winner, and made a semi-final appearance. So they are a team that, in recent history in this competition, have gone far in the tournament. They've got a striker that you and I will know through gaming and gaming alone. Dangda up front is second on the overall top scorer list for this competition. He's on 15 goals. The top scorer is on 17. I dare say he'll be looking for those 2 goals in this tournament to, match that top spot or to become the leading scorer in this tournament. It'll be interesting. We've got Myanmar, 148 in the world. They got to the semi-final in the 2016 tournament, but have only reached that stage once. A side that are always fairly competitive in each game that they play in. They'll give sides a game in this tournament, I'm sure. However, they've had a stinking 2021, actually. So do come in rotten form. And I say, it's funny, right? I'm almost contradicting myself about how they'll be competitive. They played famously earlier this year. They played Japan and lost 10-0. So they don't enter the tournament in best form. But I was reading some Suzuki Cup previews that actually are shared via the Suzuki Cup Twitter page, actually, which is really kind of official and looks like it details the tournament in some good detail. And it was saying that they are not favoured, but they will be competitive, especially in the group stage, which is interesting.
Interesting to hear.
I don't see them impacting the tournament at a later stage, nonetheless. We've got the 13th Philippines. This is their 12th appearance at the AFF. They missed the 2008 edition. They're starting to creep up the rankings, actually, in the Philippines. Now at 126. They were semi-competitive during World Cup qualification for the AFC, but exited at the second round stage. They've got to 4 semi-finals in the last 5 Suzuki Cups, and I dare say they'll be striving to get out of the group stage this time round. We've already touched on the hosts, Singapore. They've won the competition 4 times, but their last win was in 2012. Their last 3 appearances at this competition, they failed to get out of the groups.
Wow.
I'm certain as kind of the host nation, they'll be wanting to buck that trend this time round. 160 in the rankings. They've had a poor 2021, actually. 1 draw, 5 losses. But again, a starlet to look out for them during this tournament is a young attacker called Iksan Fandi, who's got 8 goals in 19 games and plays his football in Norway. He's one of the rare squad members that plays his football outside of Singapore. So Iksan Fandi, it'd be interesting to see if he's involved, and if so, how much impact he has on Singapore's experience at the tournament. And then last but not least, the qualifiers, Timor-Leste. We've already said that that's a massive caveat because they qualified basically by turning up, didn't they?
Yeah.
Brunei couldn't, so they got the ticket through. Ranked 194. They're going to be one of the poorest out of all these participants, aren't they? I can see you nodding. Now, you and I know Timor-Leste. We know this Timor-Leste team pretty well. We're going to be expecting some tough displays for them, I think. This is only their third appearance in the tournament. They will be in for a tough group stage. They've got some impressive teams within their group, and they face an uphill battle for sure. But a couple of names to look out for. João Pedro, who is a young winger who impressed in World Cup qualifiers when they got hammered by Malaysia a little while ago. He's a good player. Pace, skillful, trickery, one to look out for. And then, because they'll be busy, goalkeeper Alberto Fernandez, I'm certain, will get some decent screen time, as I expect him to be particularly busy. Decent shopper. Ruined it. I was doing so well.
You were doing so well.
Stopper. A decent shot stopper.
Tough to say.
Oh,
I wouldn't have even attempted that.
That is Group A.
I wouldn't have even
Group B.
Attempted that. You know I struggle with my S's. I wouldn't have even attempted it.
Decent
shot stopper.
He is, though. That's Group A, my friend.
That is Group A, and of course, two sides will make it through to the semi-finals. And the same goes for Group B. Now, Group B is made up of Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, and Vietnam. Sides of varying ability and probably strong favourites in this group. But nonetheless, we will go through them. So, I am donning, as you can see, the Cambodia shirt from a few years ago.
Good strip.
They are an interesting side, a very interesting side. They have qualified for the 2023 Asian Cup. They were in the preliminary draw. A lot of the sides that are lower down in the world rankings, Cambodia 170, are in the preliminary round. And they played Guam and they beat them in both legs, as you'd expect. Guam, one of the lowest ranked teams in the world. So they are through, which is great. Ketsuki Honda, former, obviously, hugely famous international and has played for sides such as AC Milan and things like that in Europe. Ketsuki Honda is general manager of the Cambodian national team. He hasn't turned around their fortunes much, but will they make an impact on this tournament? One player that will be hoping to continue in what is a truly fantastic international career for Cambodia is Kuch Sukhumfeg, who has 63 caps. 63 caps, which is an incredible feat. He's the vice-captain. He has scored 7 times in those 63, which for a midfielder isn't bad. And I just think, it's brilliant. Hopefully he's still involved in the squad. It's a mixed squad, a few new players, but I expect to see a few of the old heads in there as well. And I really hope that he can keep going. He's all-time leading caps already, so he's only extending that record.
Nice.
Indonesia, then, the next side to talk about. And as you can see, I have my Bambang Pamungkas.
Who bought you that Bambang Pamungkas shirt, my friend?
This guy right here, of course he did.
What a gift.
Brilliant player. Of course, all-time leading appearance maker, all-time top scorer for Indonesia, and an absolute legend. And I'm sure at some point Bambang will be back to manage the international side. I've got no doubts about that. He doesn't at the moment. And they're a funny side. A troubled history, certainly recently. International suspensions, as we've heard already. Then in trouble with WADA at the moment, but previously they were banned from FIFA. They've had all kinds of problems. The government in Indonesia trying to get involved in the league format, which is what caused the problems last time with FIFA. They are, however, back now in it, and a young squad, a bit of a resurgence potentially from them. 166 in the world, still quite a high ranking. Obviously it's not a small country in comparison to some of these others competing. So they will be hopeful to really kick on and change perhaps some of the history they've had recently. Another side with troubled history as well is Laos. You know, a 185 in the world, nowhere near as well known in comparison to some of these other nations, certainly around the rest of the world. I mean, no offence to Laos in that. But in 2017, after an investigation from the AFC, the majority of officials, players and coaches were suspended forever due to match fixing. There were huge match fixing problems out in Laos. 15 people suspended in the first wave, and they've gone on from there, and there's been further suspensions as well. These are lifetime bans as well. So, you know, mixed recent history. They've not played any games so far this year. I don't expect them to do well. They've got a very young side, as I'm sure you can imagine. They've even had some 17-year-olds play recently and things like that. I imagine that they will struggle.
They probably need to plug new players in with the amount they're getting banned for this match fixing.
Exactly. You know, 2017, it's not that long ago, you know, that essentially the whole of their squad and a lot of the officials were banned. So it's not great for them. And we find this sometimes in this part of the world. You've spoken about Nepal as well in the past, Indonesia, Thailand we've spoken about with the doping thing. It can be a difficult area. However, Malaysia, the next side. Now, Malaysia are, I'd say, a side definitely on the up. They're 1-5-4 in the world at the moment, and that feels about right. But I'd be surprised if by 2025, let's say, just to put a marker in the sands, they're not closer to the sort of 120 mark. I think that they'll improve. I know a lot about them. I can see the Malaysia shirt behind you there. We know a lot about Malaysia. A good side. And they've had a number of players recently. I mean, Johor is the main club side in Malaysia, and they've got some very good players. But we've seen recently players like Safawi Rashid playing out in the Liga NOS in Portugal. And a recent call-up for them, a player that's played just three times for the national team, is Dion Cools, the midfielder, 24 years of age. He actually plays for Midtjylland. Regularly plays for Midtjylland in Denmark, who are a very good side, compete regularly in European competitions like the Europa League and Champions League. They're a side, I think, that, yeah, big time on the up. And I think they'll want to make their mark on this tournament. Lots of players we've already spoken about on the channel in various different videos. And I think that they will... I think they could get out the group and they could make a mark on this tournament. But the other side, the final side in this group, and a side desperate to continue what is an incredible resurgence. Vietnam, current holders of the trophy. And one thing that we should probably touch on, this tournament's been delayed by a year because of COVID, which means it happens again next year because it happens every 2 years. And we spoke to Marvin about this as well with the SAF Championship, which will happen next year as well. So it's a really good opportunity for a side to win it this year and then potentially win it again next year. So Vietnam will be looking to do that. If they could make it 2 wins out of 2, they are 99th now in the world rankings. Really solid. And the only side still in AFC World Cup qualification. They are in the final round.
Wow.
They aren't going to qualify. They've lost, I think they've lost every game. They might have drawn one. But off the top of my memory, I think they've lost every game in the final round of World Cup qualification.
Yeah, but that's with the Saudi Arabias and Australians
well,
and
exactly.
Japans, isn't it? So,
and they're in that group with those sides and with Oman and China as well, who are, you know, who are better than them. And they've been competitive in most games, less so against obviously the bigger nations, but they're in that final round. It's been an incredible journey for them. And one thing that I love, this young blood side from Vietnam have been already dubbed the new golden generation.
The new golden generation.
Yes, they had a bright spell in the kind of mid 2010s, and now we are into the new golden generation.
I love it.
Nguyen Tien Lin, the 24-year-old, has scored, I think it's 7 times in 24 games. So he's an attacking player, and he will be desperate to continue that. And I do think that Vietnam, obviously the highest ranked side, they will now, with AFC qualification not going to happen realistically, I think they'll go for this. And I think that they would, you know, they would be a side I'd watch. And I think against the other sides in this group, you could see Vietnam, who have lost a lot of games this year, obviously, because of the sides they're playing. I think we could see a resurgence from them, and I think that we could see them continue this very good international trend. Obviously, they're now in the top 100, which is fantastic for them. So, go on then. How do you feel like the latter stages are going to go? Talk me first through this double-legged final.
Yeah, so, sorry, we're going to... Yeah, you were speaking about it earlier in the stream, and I almost interjected and kind of ruined the chronological way in which we wanted to approach this video about the tournament. I was surprised that they still do a double-legged final, essentially, when I was doing some research on this tournament pre-video, just because it feels a little bit old hat, doesn't it? Double-legged finals. It feels like they were kind of long gone and lost to the past. Double-legged semis, I can understand. So I'm not 100% certain on this, actually, but I think the double-legged semis and the double-legged final was because the Suzuki Cup was played in different locations.
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
It was home. It was home and away. The final was home and away.
I think that's correct. If anyone's watching this that feels that they need to correct anything that we've said on that, feel free to chuck something in the comments. We're keen to continue to learn about all these different regional competitions. So I was surprised that they were still doing the double-legged semis and the double-legged final, despite the fact that it's all being hosted in Singapore. How I see things panning out, that's really, really interesting, your lines on Vietnam there, actually. I guess I'd kind of not really registered how well they were doing in World Cup qualification and in general in the world rankings. We've spoken about Lebanon quite a bit, haven't we? About how they seem to be doing very, very well in World Cup qualification, how they're now 97th in the world rankings, etc. But it sounds like Vietnam are, literally a couple of rankings lower than them, and a team that's competing at that level. So I wouldn't take the results that they've had this year into consideration at all. This tournament is against teams that are ranked lower than them. So I have to say, pre your spiel on Vietnam, I would have said Malaysia actually stand out to me, and that's probably because we know a lot about Malaysia and a lot about the Malaysian players and where they're playing and how good they are and how the side has continued to improve across the last sort of 3 or 4 years. So my early shout would have been Malaysia. I'm not going to, you know what, mate? I'm not going to go into too much detail. When we did our Mahindra Rajapaksa tournament preview, I couldn't have got it more wrong. So I think I'm going to be quite sort of
quite reserved.
Talk about reserved and talk about winners rather than try and be too detailed around group winners and who's going to fall flat on their face. So I was going to say Vietnam now kind of stand out because you've sort of sold that dream to me, and the fact that they're the new golden generation. And Malaysia are another team, again, as I said, because I know quite a bit about them. I feel like they are in good stead to put in a good performance at the tournament. What about yourself?
Yeah, well, I think that, looking up stuff on Vietnam and really thinking about the fact that they're the current holders and they're still continuing to do well and things like that, I think that they will definitely be a force to be reckoned with, and I think that them and Malaysia are good shouts, certainly for that group. I think in the other group, the sides that stick out to me, Thailand, of course, they're a very solid footballing side. They've sort of been at a level for a long time. And the other one, I'd be really interested to see what Singapore do. They're hosting the tournament. A lot of games will be played at their national stadium, which isn't a small ground by any means. And I think that Singapore could do something in this tournament. It would be interesting, and I think it's going to be tough because and across the channel over the next few weeks, we'll try and dip in and out and pick up on highlights and games that we particularly love and enjoy. But one thing that's interesting about this is you're not going to know until the last minute who's going through, because they're staggered match days because they're groups of 5. So someone's always got to bye, which means that, the first game, for example, is, Timor-Leste playing, and we'll imagine they'll lose that. But they will still be on the same points as someone else at rock bottom because of how the fixtures work. So it's going to be a really interesting tournament because, as we've seen with the Mahindra Rajapaksa as well, these small groups can just suddenly flip on a game. And I think that it will be... I think the sides that we've picked out will be the strongest sides. But I'm hoping for an upset or two. It's a great tournament as a whole because, the best ranked side, 99, and, the worst... What was it? Timor 197, was it?
Yes, 194.
194, exactly. So,
194.
A huge span, I suppose, in terms of world ranking. But most of them, real minnows, real DNQ teams. This is what we thrive off, this kind of competition. And I'm really looking forward to watching the games.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say that segues really nicely into, I guess, talking the viewers through what they can expect from D&Q throughout this Suzuki Cup period, mate. So what we're going to be covering?
Well, we're going to try and cover as much as is humanly possible. It's a really busy international schedule, to be fair, because we've got the Arab Cup going on as well. We've got a few different interviews and things coming up on the channel. Don't want to say too much about that right now. But in terms of Suzuki Cup, we're going to try and sort of jump in every couple of match days and just pick up. I've put time aside in the diary to talk about any ridiculous results that come up, as we have done in previous tournaments like the 4-4 and things like that. We want to jump on those and talk about them. But an interesting one is, as we get close to the final, we also get close to Christmas here in the United Kingdom. So there's lots to look out for. If there's a crazy result, get on D&Q and hear our analysis about it. However, at the latter stages, after the semi-final, we will then do a preview for the final. We won't say anything after the first leg because that will be around Christmas time. But we may then join you around New Year's to talk around how we think the second leg is going to show up. So, if you've enjoyed watching this video of these two Muppets from England talking whilst they're trying to show you that they've got most of the shirts from this region. I didn't even think about it. I've got a Timor-Leste goalkeeper shirt as well that I haven't even been showing off.
You could have given that to me. I could have put that on. I was going to say apologies to viewers. I'm not donning a shirt from a nation that's participating in this tournament, but as Tom's mentioned, we're from the UK and it's absolutely freezing.
It is cold. It is cold for us. But listen, we can't wait for this tournament. We are excited to get into it. So if you've enjoyed this video, drop a like, drop a subscribe. Please do comment. We love comments. I love comments more than anything, to be fair. We've had so much recently from people from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, things like that, and it's great. And the interaction is fantastic. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. And for now, click this button here to subscribe and this one down here to watch a video recommended for you. But from Ryan and I, that is all. And the last thing to say, thank you very much.